What is up, guys? In today's video, I wanted to revisit the Moto G8 Power. This phone has been out for about a year now, so I wanted to just go ahead and revisit it for Motorola fans out there. And also, I used to be a big Motorola fan. That's why I can't really bring myself to sell this phone when I got it, because I just thought overall it was a really good buy when it first came out. Now, let's go ahead and check out the price, see where we're at a year later. So we're at $143. That is the cheapest you can find this phone here, and then for a new one it'll be $160. So we're well below the $200 price point for this phone. So I think that also makes it a very attractive buy. Now, we are on the Android 11 update, and that's definitely one of the good appeals for getting a budget phone from Motorola, is that you get a stock version of Android, which means that there's no bloatware. It's pretty much how Google intended it to be. Motorola throws in their little Moto application, which I will talk about. But as you can see, it's very simple. You look at your toggles, everything is extremely simple as well. Not a whole bunch going on here. So people that want that experience where, you know, you don't have applications that you didn't install, or you just want the Google experience, these Motorola devices are pretty good, and they also get updates frequently, you know, more than other budget phones that come out in like that $200, $300 price range. So I think Motorola does a solid job here with software. And also, I want to talk about the display, because I think that's something that also has held up pretty well a year later from now. So it's a 6.4-inch IPS panel on here. It's a 1080p panel, and it's $399 for the PPI. So overall, it's a sharp panel. You have your punch hole on the left-hand side here, and it looks good. If you go outdoors and stuff like that, you'll be able to see with this screen. And yeah, so I've always enjoyed you know, just using this phone's display. Now, there's no high refresh rate or anything like that, but honestly, for this price point, you know, I don't think that's a big concern for people. They just want to have a nice, you know, pretty big display on here, which I think this one does perfectly good job here. So really nice display. The Moto app is still pretty solid on here. You can see your personalized. Now you can mess with your fonts and the styles and how the icons look and everything. So you do have a bit more customization. I think they sort of got that message of the phone being a little too bland here. And overall, just the software and the UI experience is really nice. Your Moto actions with the chop is still one of my favorite things to get the flashlight. The 3-finger screenshot as well is overall pretty solid. See if I can do it. As you can see, I love using that. So they do have some really good software tweaks in here. Flip for D&D. Also, you have your Moto display on here, peak display, attentive display, and then you have your Moto game time. And I do want to talk about the hardware real quick before I keep going on and on about software. The hardware on this phone has stood the test of time. This is a pretty solid phone. I've dropped it a few times. You can see it's got a few little scratches and stuff on it, but overall it's completely fine. I did not use a case with this phone. I still think it looks really good. Have power button that's textured right here, volume rockers. You still have a headphone jack on here, USB Type-C, and stereo speakers, which I will talk about as well. Now, this phone does have the Snapdragon 665 and the Adreno 610 on here. Micro SD support, 64 gigs of internal storage, and 4 gigs of RAM. As you can see for the Geekbench score, you know, it's sort of like a, you know, a budget chip. You know, it's not going to do anything crazy or anything like that. But again, it's a chip that is for people that are just like bouncing in and out of applications, you know, social media and stuff like that. You're doing that type of thing, and you're not going like super crazy or anything like that, and it does a perfectly good job for that. And also, this phone is definitely still pretty good for casual gaming. You can definitely game casually on here. Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG plays fine on here. Again, you don't expect like flagship quality graphics and stuff like that, but you can definitely play those games perfectly fine on here. One of the best things about this phone is that it has excellent sounding stereo speakers, and even a phone that we just looked at, a newer phone from Motorola, the G Stylus, does not have stereo speakers. The G9 Plus did not have stereo speakers. So when they put stereo speakers on this phone, I was really impressed with it. So So you can see I always love having stereo speakers on a phone because it's easy to cover up that one speaker, and this one has a really nice speaker up top. They're super loud. Now the vibration on this phone is pretty decent. I think for a budget phone, it's decent. It vibrates, pretty well. So the feedback on here is solid. It's not anything crazy, but it's definitely solid. So overall, for sound, you have your headphone jack. Overall, I think the sound on this phone and the audio experience is really great. And you also, Motorola throws in their Moto audio as well, so you can sort of tweak that for different type of things you're doing, like games or music or stuff. You can sort of equalize it, and that is with Dolby Atmos, if you didn't see that. So this phone does use the physical fingerprint scanner on the back, and it works extremely fast, as you can see here. I've never had an issue with the fingerprint scanner on here. Now, one thing about this phone is that there is no NFC. So for you guys who like to use your phone for mobile payment, that is not here. So do note that if that's something that you like, you're gonna have to look at another Motorola phone. And yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the cameras. Now, I think for the price point, I think the G8 Power's cameras are very, very good. I think for this price point, I've always thought the cameras were pretty solid on here. So you have actually a quad camera setup, a 16 megapixel standard, an 8 megapixel telephoto, and you have a 8 megapixel ultra wide with the 2 megapixel macro. It shoots in 4K, and you also have a 16 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. And one of the things that I've always liked about this camera is color. So this phone actually does pretty good with color accuracy, surprisingly. It does better than some of the newer Motorola phones as well, which is something that I noticed. So you get pretty sharp looking colors, pretty good detail with this phone. And again, that is in good lighting. Now, when you take this phone out of good lighting, like most budget phones, you definitely will see a little bit of noise and you will lose a bit of detail. But overall, if you're in good lighting, you're outside, you want to snap a quick photo, you will get a pretty good shot with the G8 Power. So that is one thing that I've been impressed with. Video is just kind of okay on this phone. It's not anything too crazy. But your stills and all that stuff are going to be great. The ultra wide retains pretty good color, pretty good detail as well. The macro in here isn't really that impressive. It doesn't really get up that close. And you get a good depth of field with this phone as well. So portraits come out pretty decent too. So overall image quality, I think still for this price point, I think it's still great. Now, the reason why most people got this phone was because of battery life. So this phone launched with a 5,000 milliamp battery, which was pretty big. Last year, phones that were coming out with that size battery was pretty crazy. So you're still getting pretty good battery life with this phone. Most of your budget mid-range phones are launching with still 5,000 milliamp batteries. And there's no different with this one. It still has excellent battery life, especially with the more stock Android experience. And also not having a refresh rate saves battery life as well on this guy. So overall battery life, Motorola says you'll get like 2 days of battery life. But honestly, if you're like a light user, yeah, you'll get that 2 days. But if you're like gaming heavy on here, I think you'll get just a full days of battery life. I don't think you'll get 2 days of battery life. But if you are just a normal user that's playing games casually, bouncing in and out of social media, then definitely this phone could last you 2 days. So that is pretty much it. Another thing that is just okay with this phone is charging speeds. I've noticed since charging speeds have gotten faster on budget phones, this charges at 18 watts, which is fine. But you definitely notice that a little bit more these days, how it is a bit slower than most phones. So what do you guys think about the G8 Power? Let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.